Namaste, good morning, and welcome to the fourth episode of Pursuit of Excellence. As you already know, this show aims to put the spotlight on some of South Africa's most amazing leaders and their Indian brand stories. And in line with that, we have another inspirational and visionary leader with us here today. We have with us today Mr. Gaurish Chakravarti, CEO and Executive Director of Iron Exchange SAFIC. Iron Exchange SAFIC is a joint venture of Iron Exchange of India and SAFIC South Africa. Iron Exchange of India is a leading global total water management company with 5 decades worth of experience in wastewater management, water treatments, and recycling. Mr. Chakravarti is a natural scientist by profession, and his research papers are valuable assets for students worldwide, just as valuable as his presence and presentations at international conference on water conservation. So welcome, Mr. Gaurish Chakravarti. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Sally. I'm fine. Thank you for asking. I'm fantastic today.
That's awesome. Before I start with my first question, because you have an elite list of professional accreditations that go with your name, I will add one more small paragraph before we proceed with the first question. So, Mr. Gaurish is a 28-year-old veteran in the field of water management and conservation. Mr. Chakravarti is a technical and marketing pioneer of iron technologies dealing with wastewater management, water treatment, and cooling water management. Mr. Chakravarti was also a president of India Club, a social and cultural club for Indians in South Africa, along with several other organizations that he's associated with, such as BASA. Now, if you're like me, an amateur in knowledge when it comes to water treatment and conservation, you need to stay on for this whole interview. For we will try to glean as much precious wisdom from Mr. Chakravarti today as we possibly can. And that's not to say that this interview won't be fun, just FYI. So, Mr. Chakravarti, are you ready for your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Super. So, Mr. Chakravarti, you've been connected to Africa since 2005. And in fact, you've been in South Africa since 2008. And here's the most basic of all questions: how has your experience of South Africa been so far?
It has been fantastic. In fact, before coming to South Africa, I think I didn't have much idea. I have been to more than 55, 60 countries in my last 30 years of working with Iron Exchange International Division. But least visited country was South Africa. In fact, when I planned up a business plan for Iron Exchange India, I was asked to post myself in South Africa, and it actually was a total surprise. Of course, a pleasant surprise. It has been very pleasant, and so far we are blessed with good friends and colleagues and working environment and opportunities so far.
That's lovely to hear. So, everyone who comes to Africa, sir, comes here with a set of expectations. What were your expectations of SA before you came here, and how did reality match up to or differ from what your expectations were once you started living here?
Yeah. Actually, when I started business development for Africa for Iron Exchange, I came to South Africa with the intention to develop the whole business in Africa from South Africa, considering South Africa as a gateway to Africa. But the year which I moved in was 2008, was actually beginning of recession for most of the countries and especially Africa, and I think South Africa was on steroid. From 2008 onward, it started declining, and the development in other parts of Africa was much more and much faster than South Africa. So we realized that South Africa is a totally different entity, and we started a joint venture in 2012, making it more local. Because if it is a foreign company, it is not having those acceptance, and you have a lot of restraints. So expectation to grow the business in South Africa was much more than what we are today. But we are still a believer of the fact that South Africa will provide us enormous opportunity to grow business in, especially in SADC countries and Africa, because of this good infrastructure, banking system, and so on.
You know, we've done 4 interviews so far, sir, and this has been a common thread in all of them, where all businesses have had to adapt to being local and then they saw successes here. So it's nice to hear it again, sir. And
Thanks.
moving on to question three, you've been living here with your family. Does your family love it here? And what do they love the most about being in South Africa?
Absolutely. In fact, before coming here, there were a lot of apprehensions because we didn't have any friends or relatives. I only had a friend that was also a professional friend. But when we were here, we were delighted to get into the community so fast. And my daughter was actually studying in grade 4 in St. Andrew's School that time, and she got exposure to all the cultural programs. And in BASA, Bengali Association of South Africa, there were all traditional and other programs which were performed, and she was exposed immediately to those kind of cultural activities, and she was very well accepted, and she started enjoying that. Beside her school, which has had fantastic infrastructure and good teachers and very less number of students in the school compared to the place, like we came from Mumbai, it was actually one third kind of thing. And the attention that she was getting was, she was very happy about it. She could actually get exposure to all sort of sports, cultural activities and academics. And she got into the stream very fast. And my wife also got into that community so far that people were all accepting, encouraging, and inclusive. So we didn't have any time to get into the community within no time.
That is so refreshing to hear for anyone who has apprehensions coming to South Africa with family, sir. You put the spotlight at just the right things. When you first came to South Africa, sir, how did you find it as a business destination? What kind of opportunities did you see here, especially in the sense of work that you currently do?
Yeah, South Africa. The best part of South Africa is the infrastructure, the fantastic infrastructure, and the financial institutions, which is conducive for any kind of business to flourish. We came to South Africa realizing also the fact that South Africa is 31st driest countries in the world. So there will be enormous opportunity for treating water, recycling water, and also contributing to the community. Because we also know that in South Africa and India, there are a lot of communities in terms of places which is little away from the cities, like the rural areas. So we felt we can contribute a lot because South Africa till 92 was more or less closed, and there were some good companies also operating in water treatment here. And it was a market where you don't have to start from zero. It is already an educated market and you can immediately start the ball rolling. And also the fact that if we are based in South Africa, it is going to be easier for us to roll out a business in rest of Africa because the acceptability is going to be much more from the African Brotherhood. So those are the basic fundamentals with which we started. And of course we got success, but because of this situation, we got limited and we were reduced to a certain figures and values. Otherwise, we had success in growing our brand name, making our presence felt, and wherever we have worked, we got a lot of encouragement and acceptance.
Nice. So, shifting the focus to Ion Exchange and its various initiatives now, can you tell us what you do and how your work can make an impact, not just in South Africa, but really the whole world, in fact?
Yeah, we are so lucky to work in a company which deals such an important part of our life, and it touches every person, right from the smallest, the poorest person to the richest person in the world. So this aspect of water is really something that we are proud of, and we feel that we can make a difference in this country because of our technologies, which has been proven over more than 5 decades and are accepted globally. And to implement this in South Africa, we are pretty confident, and we have seen success in this endeavor also.
That's lovely. You work a lot with governments on a macro or policy level. What are the radical and not so radical policy changes that you'd like to see here with regards to water conservation and usage?
See, the company with whom we partnered here, which was called Accentuate, which was a JSE listed company, and the CEO of Accentuate has been very active with the government, helping them to make policies, and part of their white paper preparation for the water management for the municipalities and all. So we are connected from the side with the government. As far as policy decisions are concerned, suggestions which are made for the policy decisions. But we had got several opportunities to interact with the government, like even the Cape Town government when Mr. Windy was there, was leading the initiatives. We were able to share our experience in India in terms of water challenges, because whatever they were facing at the time of water crisis in Cape Town, we had already gone through that several number of times and several years back in Mumbai or other parts of India in a much bigger scale. So we suggested that technologies which were tested as well as proven in India, we applied here, like seawater desalination, sewage treatment and recycling of the water, and underground treatment of water. So those were the things which we suggested. We also shared our experience working with the government of India and Sri Lanka and many other countries where we were engaged with the municipalities to incentivize water management. If somebody is using less, you should incentivize the discharge if is discharging less, and less pollution is created, and also the recycling of the waste, solid waste management to energy. So those are the things which we shared. And in fact, South Africa, we had many cases where we found there were disconnect in terms of water usage as well as the value of water that one pays. We also shared the numbers and figures which an industry in India pays. So those are the things we suggested. And when I came, I can tell you in 2008, when we said we also do sewage treatment and recycling of the water, people were looking at us with a lot of hate. I mean, they said, what are you talking about, sewage? So, but now is a stage where they are more open to understand, learn, and also accept the fact that many countries in the world, like Singapore, using all the wastewater into their drinking system, and technically it is possible. So those were the difference we could made over last maybe 10 years of continuous engagement with the government officials and stakeholders and many other people to try to induce the fact that water is not going to be abundant, it is going to be reduced over a period of time. And one has to be very conscious about using this water, because South Africa, if you see, is one of the highest consumer of water per capita. If you talk about per person, it is 233 liters of water per person uses in South Africa against the world average of 120 liters, and India 150 liters. So it is extremely high, and especially if you see Gauteng, the consumption is close to 300 liters per day. So it's extremely high. So we have to be very conscious, because you see this country, this region is a water-starved region. So obviously you need to take utmost care of the water that you are using and discharging.
Spoken like a scientist. I think that is the major disconnect of a scientist and a layman. So good that you highlighted that. So coming back, this brings us to our next question actually, which is the micro household level. When talking about micro level water usage, like household, what we use in our homes, what are the little things that individual households can do to reduce our water consumption? Are there any water treatment or water recycling solutions that allow us to reuse water in our own homes? And the most important of all, how feasible or practical is it to install something small for our own wastewater management in our own homes?
Okay. See, if you talk about household water consumption, we only drink, say, if we talk about 150 liters of water on an average, which is the world average. So maybe maximum 3 to 5 liters we drink. And maximum water which is going is like toilet flushing, say close to 22 to 25% water goes with the toilets, and close to about 15% goes for showering, and 22% goes for your washing activities, including your clothes and also your other things. So we need to be very cautious about what we are using, what we are discharging. Say, I have seen in India, my mother used to wash the vegetable, and that vegetable she used to put it in the uh, tubs or in the garden. She used to wash the rice, and she used to actually use that for again those similar purpose. And these are the small things, but it can help and make a lot of difference. You see. Now, while we are brushing our teeth, if you keep the tap running, while we are shaving, if you keep the tap running, we are going to be wasting a lot of water, which can be prevented. And for showering, I know it is a little trivial, but if you use, say, a bucket for taking shower, you can actually restrict it and minimize it to a large extent compared to if you are using in a bathtub or you are taking a shower from a shower. But these are the small things, but every member, if he or she tries to adhere to this, can make a lot of difference. And if recycling of, like, as I said, if you are able to use the wash from your washing machine, the waste which is going in a pipe, and you actually have kind of a small tanker where you store that water over a period of time and then use it for cleaning and say washing, not for the gardening, but gardening also you can use the other means which I mentioned just now. So these are the small tips, but you can really use water wisely and minimize your water bill, which is going high and high every day.
We see as we progress, sir, we seem to be losing touch with those old lifestyles that were actually more practical and better, you see. Um, so, sir, we have talked about ion exchange in terms of the water conservation that they do or phenomenal work that they do. Let's shift focus to human resources for a second now. Please shed some light on ion exchange, local employment generation, and skill development initiatives in South Africa.
See, we are very proud to say that we have come here with an objective to grow the company more local. And when we started this joint venture, it actually started in a much higher way. We employed close to 10 people directly, and our partner has about 49 people who are supporting us in this business. Out of this 10-person which we are directly recruiting, only 2% on permanent role are from India, and rest of the appointments have been made from South Africa. And we have people from DRC, we have people from different places of South Africa. We have South African Indian, we have white, we have black. Every color is present in our team. Although this team is small, it's not big, but still we are trying to work with the channel partners to promote business for various segments, either geographically or industry wise. Like, we have industrial verticals in terms of pharmaceutical industries, refineries, petrochemical, food and beverage industries, steel industries, power verticals. So what we try to do is we engage the local companies who are representing us. We try to empower them by training them on our products and make them competent to sell this to the customers. They are the front line. We are supporting them with all the backup technology, all the backup product supplies, and we also support them in marketing, and also we visit them while going for any technical discussion. So those channel partners, each of them may be having at least 10 to 15 people within their companies, are empowered or getting supported from us in terms of those training that we are taking from time to time. And similarly, we are also having training program which is organized from time to time over digital media, and we call the best faculties available internationally from Ion Exchange to take up those specific subject which are more relevant and they can deliver good talk. So this is how we are actually training our own employees, our channel partners, our distributors, and also we engage from time to time conducting technical symposium for the consultants in water sector here. The topmost water consultants also we had carried out several training from time to time. We also engaged UNISA for various topics on water treatment, including nanotechnology application on water treatment, wastewater treatment. We worked with some of the topmost professors like Professor Ajay Mishra and Professor Shivani for conducting those training programs locally here, who are also part of, Ajay Mishra is also chairing the IEEE here. So we had a fantastic relationship while engaging with them and the community and the industry for training people in this field.
It's really nice to see that your company has penetrated universities for the skill development area. Love it. So, sir, now looking at community, does Ion Exchange run any community projects to provide clean drinking water in South Africa?
See, Ion Exchange, if you see historically, 23% of our share goes to the Employees Benefit Trust, and which is driving all the charity and all the corporate social engagement in various countries and various places where they do work. In South Africa, we are engaging with various communities. In fact, there are places where we are trying to supply water where they don't get water supply regularly. If you are going little away from the cities, you can realize that there are places where people have to still travel long distance or hilly areas to get the water. And the problem is those hilly areas do not have adequate supply of water. If you talk about in areas which are closer to the mines, water is contaminated if you go down to dig the water. So we are having technologies which can treat water without electricity. And in the rural areas also, we have hand pump attachment which can remove arsenic, fluoride, heavy metals, and uranium from the water. And those technologies were especially developed for communities which cannot afford a lot of money to treat. And we offer our services there and trying to engage with other corporates to offer solutions to them. In fact, I will not be able to mention the names. Currently, there are 2-3 projects where we are extremely active in providing a solution with the government where there is no water and there are river water which are contaminated, and we are planning to offer basically 2 types of solution. One is long term, another is short term. Long term will take about 2-3 years, but short term we have a kind of packaged unit which is called in India disaster management unit, where you can take any kind of water in a truck. We have a whole setup of purification of water and a generator to drive that plant, and the water which is treated and you get is just maybe better than the bottled water that is available in the market. So those treatment we can do on site, where next to the river we can put those trucks. Then we can have trailer mounted trucks or trucks containing big tanks which can supply water to various places. So this is something that we are working for mining community and also some villagers in various places. So I won't be able to give you the names, but there are at least 4 to 5 projects which are in the pipeline in this sector.
That's a wow in all caps, really. I wish you were coming to Konkan and you did that for my village too.
Sure.
So everyone, absolutely every one of us knows the importance of water in our lives. And almost everyone is also aware that we are sure to run out of clean, potable water if we continue to consume indiscriminately like we currently are. Since you are at the forefront of the issue, can you tell us exactly how alarming the situation really is?
It is actually now, if you see for last 5 years, sometime we are talking about uh, non-availability of water, Cape Town getting zero supply, and so on. So this fact has to be understood that more than 2 billion people do not get access to uh, drinking water, clean drinking water in the world. More than 2.5 billion people do not have access to basically other facilities, ablutions and all, which is also creating pollution. And more than 3 billion people in the world, they do not have availability of water to just wash their hand. Can you believe? We are talking about corona, we are talking about hand sanitization and cleaning. Not even water. We don't have water for more than 3 billion population in the world. That this is the statistics I got from World Health Organization website. Now, this is going to be severe and more problematic in coming days. We must realize, because the water as such, if you see, the fresh water supply is getting slowly depleted. So we have to conserve, we have to preserve, we have to take care of it very, very carefully. So when we are in the cities in South Africa, when we are talking about South Africa, when we take a shower, when we flush the toilet, do you know we are actually throwing out water which has been treated and is just like a drinking water. And so many people are not able getting a glass of water. They have to walk maybe miles together to fetch water for the family, and we are flushing away in no time 8 to 10 liters any point of time. And number of times we go to the toilet, we are just discharging that water. Just think about it judicially and see, are we doing the right thing or not. What we could have done is, like, if we have wash water, like from the pools, after washing, if you have that water, if you are using it for toilet, that could also save some water. And one bucket of water is about 10 to 15 liters. So this is how you can actually make a difference. And everybody has to take care of this conservation in view of the coming generations who are going to be here. And if they don't get access, in 2030 or 2040, we will actually have 1/3 supply of the potable water. That has been actually studied by various organizations. So we have several such studies which indicates one thing, that availability of fresh water is slowly depleting, it is reducing, and unless and until we act now, it will be too late tomorrow.
Thanks for bringing us face to face with that stark but very depressing reality. I think it's time to lighten up this interview a little bit. So let me ask you about India Club and BASA and all the activities and initiatives that you are part of for the Indian community in South Africa.
When I came to South Africa in 2008, I was accompanied by one of my best friend, who was one of the founding member of India Club. We went to then High Commissioner Mr. Bhatia's house, and we also had initial discussions and all, that how we should be making a difference to the Indian community and how should we actually make a difference in the South African community and make the friendship stronger. So India Club was actually formed before I came here, about a year or so. And I was so lucky to get into the mainstream of India Club and start working with the main team to see how things can be made and how we can actually make a difference to the whole community. So we started with socio-cultural activities, where we started the first program in Randburg. It was an open theater, actually. It was Brightwater Commons, when we invited all the different communities from India to perform their non-Bollywood dance and music, because Bollywood is known by everybody, so it is available in the net, and people can get to see it through the media. Now, our initiative was primarily to bring the real culture of India to South Africa, where we invited cultural troops from India also, and also we engaged with all the various small and medium communities, like different states. We invited them to perform for few minutes to showcase their state, and it actually was very much success, because the children started learning their culture. They have started getting connected with those roots, so we had that India Day celebrated close to 15th August, and which was eventually renamed as India South Africa Carnival, and we had in actually done in a much bigger scale. But this was the flagship event which we started, I think, 2008 onwards, and it continued till now. Last year we had to do digitally because of, obviously, the reason known to you. And then we also had Holi celebration, where it's all the people came without any charges. Everything was free, actually. It was offered, and all the program of India Club is offered free of cost, unless and until it is a Bollywood event or something, which is also part of our activities. So it is basically a socio-cultural arm of our country to extend the friendship to the South African community, the South African Indian community, and the expatriates, and bringing everybody in one platform is a fantastic experience. So that is what India Club has been traditionally doing. Then we extended to Golf Day event, where we invited the corporates to join and get connected, and various other activities we started. In fact, you might be knowing about the first few Vande Bharat flights, which started from India, from South Africa, Johannesburg. How India Club played a vital, active role in taking care of all the stranded Indians during the lockdown in 2020, that March onwards. So we were trying to work together with all the state communities, the regional communities, offering food and medicine to the people who were stuck in various places. Also arrange accommodation for some. We worked with Consulate General of Johannesburg closely together. Also the High Commission and Pretoria also were actively supporting us in this endeavor. We were also coordinating with Cape Town and Durban for various Indians who were stranded, offering them emotional support, moral support, beside providing food. So those are the things we did. We also arranged that flight, where we were physically present there to take care of the passengers' identity and offering them breakfast, food, and then we moved them to the airport, and then we physically we helped everyone to get to the airport and also to take the flights. So those are the assistance that we did under the umbrella of India Club, and also other communities also supported us to continue doing this. And we did 3 flights from India Club on expatriation.
Sir, the Indian diaspora here absolutely loves India Club. Means even the last year, I think the golf thing you mentioned, the golf day was just about a month or two back, and it was also a really big, roaring success. So please, I hope you always come up with these amazing things, because we love participating in them. Now,
Sure.
talking about you professionally, you are a super busy CEO of an important organization in a challenging niche, and that's important for all of humankind. How do you manage your time between your professional duties while still maintaining a healthy work life balance?
See, the basic thing which helped me is my passion about the field in which I am working. So I never feel that this is my duty, or this is my work hour, or this is my something that I'm bound by laws or something like that. It is basically, it gives me a lot of pleasure if I can help people to resolve problems, not only for their household, to the community, to the industry. So it's like, we are 24/7 working people. We take rest when we get tired, but whenever we are active, either we are working for the company, and or we are working for the community. And I don't feel that I have got tired of it or something like that. It gives a lot of excitement, what a lot of what I can tell you is a lot of satisfaction if you can make a difference to the community, to the society. And I'm really thankful to my family also, who continuously support me. I have never got any complaint from them that we are not providing them time. We sometimes involve them also in this kind of activities. They also feel part of it, and they also enjoy that.
So it's amazing that you mentioned passion in this answer, because that brings me to the exact same next question. What you do is both exciting as well as important. So we are wondering, is this something you've always wanted to do? I mean, were you always passionate about water technologies?
See, frankly speaking, what happened, I actually, my first admission in Delhi University was in computer science. But when I got admission in chemical side in a very good college in Delhi University, I just moved to that part, because during my time, computer science was like first year they started in Delhi University with computer science. So people were not very much confident about the future of that course. But after I completed my master's, iNexchange has been my first company where I joined. It will be a little bit difficult to digest for many people, because uh, you will not have so many people like me joining one company and sticking for 30 years in the same company. And I can tell you, the primary driving force was water, because I never thought before joining this company water is so important, and it is so interesting, and it is so diverse. Just like soil in different places are different, water in different places is different. So you are challenged with something in one place, another thing in another place. It doesn't have a panacea or one solution. So everywhere you have to design a different treatment scheme. Everywhere you have to have a new challenge, and it gives a lot of satisfaction once you solve the problem. So when I joined the company, I saw that myself very much connected with water, and I never left this business, and I still realize, and I feel happy that I did so and continued in the same field. And during the lockdown also, many of the companies were closed, but because we were in the essential service, we were able to continue our work. We have been able to grow the business from year to year. Even the last year to this year, we grew. So this is because the industry in which I am in, and that is coupled with the company in which I have been working, which is a totally professional company. And we never felt that we are an employee, because it is like an employee driven company, and the company's management also believes that everybody is in every individual is important to the company, and we are part of the business. We are part of the growth of the company.
So, sir, 25 plus years in one company is very old school. Let us fast forward to millennials now. When you look at social media today, a majority of us millennials are mere social media warriors. Is there anything you want to say to those of us who are environmentally conscious and concerned, but do not know where to start in terms of tangible efforts related to water conservation?
See, I would say people, if they are passionate, if they want to do something, they don't have to wait for anything. They can start the way they feel passion, and share their novelties and understanding. They should immediately start doing it, and slowly, slowly they can define it. Now, in terms of social media, we should be sharing the facts about water. We should be sharing the importance of water, because you see, without electricity or without food, you can survive for many years, many days. But with water, you can't survive.
Yeah.
Water is so important. So that is why it is said that every individual is connected through water. And if everyone from their own contributes from their side, one point also, that will actually help the whole community and the country and the universe as such to continue with water for many more years.
Yeah, that's what they say. Every drop counts. So, if a new entrant were to explore your niche today and ask for your advice, do you foresee any business opportunities here in SA in the field of recycling and reusing, if not specifically focused on water? It could be anything broader, but in the field of recycling and reusing.
See, recycling and reusing of any natural resources which is not perennial is important and essential. So, because we are in the field of water, we talk more about water. But if you talk about energy, that is also the same thing. So, it is important for every person to, first of all, consume judiciously and recycle whatever level they can to make a difference. It is not possible that you stop using water or energy. You will have to use it. But if you are able to understand from your own heart that how important it is, how much I am consuming, how much I am returning back, then those consciousness will help you to find ways and means to come out with optimization of use, reuse and recycling of everything in terms of, as I said, water, energy, and also if you talk about say recycling of even the plastic, PVC, PET bottles, and also many things. Like if we are using something and we are just throwing it, then you are not only contributing to the environmental hazard, you are also wasting, say, your resources. So if you are able to reuse that, then definitely you are saving on those two front. So I think everybody today or tomorrow has to do it. So it is better we start today.
Yeah, sooner rather than later. So let's end the segment with some really, really light questions, especially about you. So, Mr. Chakrabarti, how do you spend your leisure time?
See, as I mentioned, we love working together in the community, and as I said, we have been part of many of the social organizations, and it gives enormous happiness. And we also, as a family, also sometimes go for those kind of social works. But beside that, of course, South Africa is a beautiful country, and we love to travel in various places. Whenever there is an opportunity, then we also go in, say, groups, like few good friends. We spend time together in some good places. And if you drive from your home within half an hour or 1 hour, you will see the places so beautiful that it takes your all the tension and anxiety away, and you can relax if you stay for even a night away from that your regular places. So we do that sometime whenever we get time.
Wow. So you already touched on travel, you already touched on road trips. So let me elaborate the question a little bit. What is your favorite travel experience or destination here in SA?
See, my best travel experience when I travel by road is actually going to Durban, frankly speaking, because especially after the rainy days when you see beautiful greeneries around, and it's not that far that you get tired, you can enjoy the trip. After 1 hour, 2 hours, you get good places to eat, and I think I really enjoy traveling by road, and especially in Durban area and also towards Pumalanga, and few places which are beautiful. And Cape Town, as such, the city is beautiful. If we especially drive from Port Elizabeth to Cape Town, the Garden Route is fantastic. So yeah, I mean, many places in South Africa is beautiful to drive in.
I totally second you on the Durban route, where after it rains, I can totally visualize it, those open green meadows, right? So, my last question for the day, sir. What would you rate as your best experience here? One that will remain with you forever, even when you leave.
See, there are two things I would like to share. One is after coming here, I have been able to meet great leaders and inspiring people, very closely interacting with them, which would not have been possible in case I was not here. I could meet the President of India here. I could meet the Prime Minister Narendra Modi here. I could meet spiritual leaders from Ramakrishna Mission who are coming and traveling time to time. Of course, last 1.5 years it has been pretty less. And also, I am so lucky to be part of this growth or development which they are doing. That's fantastic. I mean, that's the best part of it in my life, which was very difficult for me, even if I wanted to do it in India because of the large population and not getting chance about it. And second thing, I cherish the lovely people in South Africa, their mannerism, their greetings, their courtesy and friendliness. And I have been lucky to meet excellent people who has made a lot of impression in my mind. Probably I might have changed myself also, or try to change to see the good things from the people from South Africa whom I met so far. And not to talk about the brilliant climate and the weather. Lovely. I mean, this is unmatchable. In terms of the weather that we have, we are enjoying the pollution, no pollution in this area. And around, if you are just breathing freely, lightly, it is not possible in many countries. So this is really something I cherish from South Africa.
Hashtag heart, sir. That was such a beautiful answer to end off with. So those were all the questions I had, but I would like to pass on the opportunity to Piyush. I'm sure he has a couple of questions for you. Piyush, do you?
Yes, Sally. I had, I wanted to just ask Gauriji one thing. See, I was in Bangalore before I came to South Africa, and they say Bangalore will be the second driest city in the world. After Cape Town, maybe it will be Bangalore, which will go run out of water. So there, in my apartment, the water which used to come for flush tanks, it was recycled internally. So the wastewater was recycled, and it was actually went back to the flush. So at least that kind of of saving of water was very much there. So do you think a business opportunity, because as an entrepreneur I always look for business opportunities. So do you think there is how exactly have you tried suggesting this option to new age developers, or especially in the people especially the people of Cape Town, where now they would be conscious about spending water and being judicious about it? So how is the response in market, if you ever tried?
Piyush, it's a brilliant question. Actually, as I said in my beginning of talk, that when I came to South Africa in 2008, when I said wastewater we can recycle and use it, people were looking at us like, I have committed a crime talking about a wastewater recycling and sewage treatment. But now people are realizing. And South Africa, if you see during the crisis, everybody was talking about desalination of seawater. It's a fancy technology. It's an expensive technology. But if you are really knowing the options which are available as alternative source of water, you should not go for only seawater desalination. As you rightly said, the wastewater is actually not the waste. Waste word should be replaced by resource or
Yes.
well, because you can actually treat this very productively, and you can get back the water, you can get fertilizers, you can get phosphate, nitrate, and nitrogen, and all these things. So we have been talking to the municipality, we are talking to the government that installation cost for setting up of a desalination plant is very high. You go for recycling the municipality waste, treat that and recycle it. Secondly, the operating cost for a seawater desalination plant is close to about 10 rands per 1,000 liters. Whereas if you are treating and wastewater from the municipality, it could be 1.5 to 2 rands. Your installation will be much faster, much cheaper if you recycle the municipality waste rather than going only for seawater desalination. So I have actually spoken in various forums, in conferences also, and in this topic of alternate source of water. So I had comparatively shown what are the installation costs, what are the running costs, what is the footprint, and what is the time period required for all these options. And it could be a combination of all, but not necessarily only seawater desalination. So as you have mentioned about your household level, like your building, we have offered similar technologies to Mombasa, some of the 5-star hotels, where we are treating the water, recycling it, and using in the toilet flush as well as for laundry and gardening.
Yes.
And you can't see the wastewater plant at all. It is such a lovely plant, and there is no bad odors or nothing. You will not understand it's a wastewater or sewage treatment plant. So those are the technologies of future. In India, if you see, if you are going to put a new industry, you have to use grey water, which is called grey water, for your non-critical applications like cooling waters or boiler water. You don't need drinking water. So they are mandatorily asked to use recycled water and use it for their process. And for drinking another, you can take the other water, which is a nominal percentage compared to the whole water which is used. So this is the future. This is going to be coming very soon. So we have got those modular plants for the not exactly for one household, but maybe a few flats or say shopping centers or a group of few, means 50 or to 20 houses together. We can have package treatment and recycling the water back in the system. It can be actually scaled up your drinking water quality, or you can use it for the tertiary other requirement based on the cost of your water, based on the availability of your water. We really guide you to what extent you should be treating. Should you spend money, or should you spend less money in order to make it just usable and make it great water and recycle that water?
Okay. Another supplement question to that. Is it possible to do it in an existing building, or it has to be installed in the start of the construction?
It is possible to do it in the existing building also. One primary thing is you have to have 2 separate tanks, and one is going to be collection tank, where you take the waste, treat it, and put it in the treated water tank. From there you can have a pipeline. It's a matter of laying new pipes, that's all.
Okay.
And the best part is, if you are going for a new construction, you can do it already concealed piping inside. But otherwise it has to be planned and can be done. It is possible. It is possible.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your gracious answer, Gaurishji. It is so nice hearing you and understanding the how you are actually controlling such a scarce natural resource, which is water. And they say the third world war will happen for water. Looks like it might happen for other things also. These days we have new enemies. But yes, there's quite a lot of things which we have learned, and let's all of us decide to save water in whatever way we can, whether it is to do less flush, smaller or shorter showers, or using bucket water. So thank you so much once again, Gaurishji.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, John.
So we'd like to thank you for your time and gracious answers, Mr. Chakravarti. It was such a pleasure to have you with us today. Hope you had an equally good time with us.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Thank you, Sally.
So, with this, we wrap up our 4th episode of Pursuit of Excellence. Along with our esteemed guests who take the time out to chat with us, I'd like to thank the Consul General of India in Durban, Honorable Sri Anish Rajan, who made this series possible. And of course, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today as you do every month. Thank you and see you again with another new guest soon. Namaste.